All right, so hi, I'm Ben Ricker, and this is a lightning talk. There's a lightning bolt emoji. This is lightning. I got a lot of gifts in here, so get ready. This is my GitHub. I have 6 followers. You might know me. I work at Liaison International. My email. So here's 4 tweets and a lie about me as an introduction. I'm a software engineer too at Liaison International. I'm a graduate of the Firehose Network, and I still troll the Slack channel. I'm half of the popular rap group Drake. I'm red-green colorblind, which is a great excuse for not writing tests, and I own a lot of dumb domains like kingof.pizza, puglab.com, the net is fast, wow the net, too much net, and a bunch of other dumb ones. And I actually don't know Drake that well. We're pen pals, but I've never actually met him. He doesn't reply to my tweets. But why are you listening to me? Someone made me give a lightning talk. I might have some helpful advice for you. It would be very rude of you to leave because I've already begun and you're stuck now. And I've been where you are and I've made it out alive. So by made it out alive, I mean I've graduated the boot camp, I put in the work, and I now work as a full-time developer, which I think is a lot of the goals of people here. I think a lot of people are either trying to do something entrepreneurial or they're working to become a full-time developer. So that was my goal when I was in the boot camp, was to become a full-time developer. So I made it up and did that. So what's the deal with my job? I work on the new features team at Liaison International, and we deal with college applications for schools and student side. We build lots of new stuff and fix old broken junk, and lots of schools joining, so there's a lot of work to be done, and we don't have enough developers, so maybe you. So a big part of this for me was transitioning to a professional developer. I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought it was going to be very scary. I did not feel all that well prepared, but I ended up going through the interview process and it worked out great. So a lot of people have asked me, what is your day like? I think a lot of people who are in the boot camp don't really know what a full-time developer does for, 10 hours a day. So my average day, this is me logging on at my computer in the morning to the right. At 9 o'clock, I usually come in and I check tickets from yesterday. So we get our work assigned to us by checking, product managers give us tickets and we perform the work on the ticket and then we close it out. So we have a stand-up meeting every morning at 10 a.m. So I usually try to get ready for that by figuring out what I did yesterday and, what I'm going to talk about in the stand-up meeting. So 10:20 on, it's usually just getting to work. It's a lot like what you do without the guides in a lot of cases. So what you're preparing to do in coding is just that big chunk of the day of getting to work. And that involves working on tickets that are assigned to you by product managers, pairing with other developers, reviewing other developers' tickets, and then making copy, choosing diffs for pull requests, and hanging out with your dog if you work from home. So then there's other days where everything's a disaster and you're just cleaning up the mess, putting out fires for the whole day. And it's more common than you might think, but it's not like weekly or anything, but there's usually days where you got to put out a fire. So the job transition can be very scary. So this movie wasn't that scary, but it's the scariest GIF I could find. But I had a lot of misconceptions about when I was going to start my job because having never worked in programming before, I thought, I'm not really that ready. I go in completely unprepared. And that kind of links with the third one there, if I'm the only one who need help. But it's actually pretty well prepared. I ended up doing quite a bit better than I thought I would. And I really felt that the boot camp prepared me for that. So that's what the boot camp is all about, is getting you ready for your goal, whether that's entrepreneurial work or whether that is working as a full-time developer. I had a lot of comments from other developers saying that I was a lot more prepared than I thought I was. And I really stepped in right off the bat and started contributing. And another big part of that is people will think that I know more than I really do. And that's what they check during the interview process. They're not just there to shake hands and say hi. They're really measuring your skills and seeing if you're a good fit for the position. So if you can get through stages like that, then you are ready. And, imposter syndrome is super heavy, but keep in mind that these people know better than you do. And that's why they're in their position. So they're a really good judge of if you know enough. And some of the worst advice I've had, fake it till you make it. This is really horrible advice. It's just pretending that you know stuff that you don't. And that's not how you learn. I really didn't even try this because everyone said, you know, a lot of people just pretend that they know what they're doing, and it's a really bad idea because you're never going to learn that way. No one here thinks that you're coming in as a senior level developer, and you know, don't act like it. Don't act like you know everything. You're going to learn a lot more if you just ask every sort of questions, because no one will get annoyed. So really, it should be this scary instead of, you know, a bear coming out or whatever. This is the dumbest scary GIF I could find. So here's a series of dumb mistakes that I made at my job that, and their consequences, to really show that everything is fixable. There's really nothing you can do that's going to totally break everything. So the first one, I worked off the wrong branch for hours. So I was working on a new feature, and I was on the wrong branch. I didn't even realize it. And I worked for about 5 hours. So I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do here? I asked somebody, and they said, we'll just delete the branch and cherry pick the commits. So from that, I learned it's super easy to just cherry pick your commits, which is grabbing your commits from a different branch and putting them onto the one that you intended to work off of. So this took about 2 hours of worrying and maybe 45 seconds to fix. So terror level is 3. It wasn't that bad. I knew there was going to be worst case scenario, just some wasted time. This one, I deployed to QA and had to leave the office to beat traffic. This one was a little tougher to explain because it was just I didn't want to be in the office. But someone else pretty much just said, okay, that's not a big deal. I will take care of that. The outcome was I drove home, beat traffic, and someone else pretty much did the whole thing for me. So that one was a little worse because it was my responsibility, and I just left. But it was fine. Someone who was more experienced did it anyways, and it was a hot fix. No one wants to deal with that. I pushed to the master branch. This one was a lot worse. I was really freaking out because I thought I broke the enterprise, though. You know, the whole thing. I thought, this is horrible. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this. Someone said, don't worry about it. Everyone does that. We'll just revert that commit. So no one else even knew about it. Only the person who I had gone to for help, and it was not a big deal at all. This is why there's items in place like GitHub and Git, and there's all sorts of mitigating factors. You can't even push to production, really. And terror level was 8. I thought I was in a lot of trouble there. And the worst one, I accidentally messaged a product manager a joke about a product manager. And I did not get a response. I don't know if he did not see it or what, but the outcome was that there's a really cool feature in HipChat where you can edit your last message. So you can even change it to say, hi, I hope you're having a great day. And I thought I was in a lot of trouble with that one, but nothing happened in that either. So my advice after graduating is definitely continue to build stuff. You are fresh out of the boot camp and you're in a really good position to just keep on learning. You're in a really good position to contribute to open source and get your name recognized. Stay active in learning and teaching especially. I found that teaching other people really solidifies what you are learning. So I'll touch on that more later. But let your friends let you know you rule the web. So really try to get friends involved in this too. So say, you know, this is what I've learned and it's, you know, I really like it, or, you know, warn them, say you don't like it, whatever you want to tell them. But I've tried to get a lot of friends involved. My friend Joe is actually here with us today because we talked about coding and he wants to get involved. So ask for help in looking for a job. And the bootcamp is a really good place for this because you have lots of other people with similar goals and you're not necessarily competing for the same market because a lot of you guys are across the country from each other. And you have people like Angel and I who might be able to help you out with that. Ken's a really good resource too. So this is a really good place to ask for help for looking for a job, even if it's just looking at your resume, looking at your GitHub, seeing where you can improve. Be social and make connections. Be active everywhere. You know, there's no wrong place to look for new friends in coding, whether that's at meetups or whether that's on Twitter, GitHub, anywhere. Teach others is a big part of it. I'm still here at Firehose. I'm trying to help people out in the Slack channel and on the forums. And I found that it's the best resource for me to solidify what I know is to try to teach to others, try to explain it. Because if you can't explain it simply, then you just don't understand it. That's not a verbatim quote. I just wrote that before we went on today. So that's been a big part of it for me. And that is it. Finn.
I love it. Cool stuff.
Very cool, man. Good talk.
Does anybody have any questions for Ben?
Where'd you get all your GIFs?
I was going to ask that question too, Angel.
I'm a professional with that. That's the only thing I'm good at. Let's see. I can't find the screen. Oh, I'm still sharing. I'll post the link in chat.
I got a question for you, Ben. What was like the first commit that you made that was kind of validating that you actually knew some stuff about this thing we call coding?
Well, the first thing I thought I was just like a secret agent when I did this thing because it seemed like it was of such high consequence. It was refactoring. We have two different types of schools. We have the older schools, which are CAS 2, and then we have the newer schools, which are CAS 3. I have my video off. And what the big thing was is that social security numbers didn't work on CAS 2, but they worked out great on CAS 3. So I had to refactor the social security system to work on both of them. And I thought that was this huge thing because social security numbers are so important. And I learned now based on the story points that it would have taken an average developer like 2 days to do. And it took me, I think, 3 weeks. But I was so happy because I contributed. But I did that almost right out of the gate. I think that was, I set up my environment week 1. And then week 2, I started getting to work on that.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I was terrified. I thought, there's no way I'm going to be ready for this. I think, I'm getting carried here. And maybe, 6 months down the line, I'll be able to contribute. But you're really ready. Everything that you're going to work on is pretty, familiar to you. You just need to get your grips.
So Ben, how'd you get your foot in the door at Liaison?
And I think I put my resume out on dice.com. I really tried to get my foot anywhere I can get it. I'd send it out to everybody. And a recruiter actually came out to me and said, "Hey, we think you're a good fit for this position." And it's like, yeah, well, I heard that 100 times, but in my position, I can't turn down any sort of chance I can get. So I followed through with it, and it ended up working out great.
Cool, good stuff. Anybody else have any questions for Ben?
So you're remote. How do you do your stand-up meetings? Do you just like this, just Skype in or whatever?
Usually this, yeah. Usually try to just get, we do it on Google Hangouts. So it's usually, some people do video. I don't do video because I usually talk and then I leave. So I'll not leave, but like get to work and tune out because other people, I know what everyone else on my team is doing. The product managers just want to know what everyone's up to. So I'm usually on Google Hangouts, but there's a call-in line.
What's your stand-up format?
I think they're trying to switch over to more of a Scrum format. Right now, it's just flat out, what did you do yesterday? What are you working on today? Do you need help with anything? And they call on people if you don't, raise your hand, like it's high school.
Because we do our stand-up, but we don't do video or chat. We just do it on Slack and just, kind of everyone remote. So we do a 1, 2, 3, 1, P1s for today, 2, what you're going to work on next, and 3, any blockers, whether it's someone else blocking you, you're waiting on someone to finish something. On my end, a lot of times I'm waiting on copy to be able to finalize something. So I was just curious on how you do it.
I would think that would be a better format, and it's a lot less pressure. It's not a high pressure situation. But we have certain product managers don't have access to HipChat, and certain developers just don't want to use Skype. All the product managers are on Skype. All the developers are on HipChat. So there's no overlap there. So we just do it by phone, or it's feeling more antiquated every day.
Gotcha.
But it's how we're doing it. I'll suggest that. I'd love to get on Slack, but I think we use Jira for our ticket management, and it's the same company as HipChat, so we get it.
Yeah, Slack is pretty awesome, dude. I've been digging in more and more. I get to use it.
Cool stuff. Anybody else have any questions for Ben?
Oh, Tim. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I saw Tim posted one in the chat.
Yeah, that was the one I posted in the chat. I was gonna see if you saw it now.
Yeah, I just saw it. I almost interrupted you with your question. I think for continuing to keep learning once you finish the program is really just keep building stuff. That's how you're going to learn the most. You can't break anything when you're working on your own stuff, especially that's a great way to learn to use Git, is just keep on trying to build stuff. Even if you have to follow other guides out there, you'll learn how other stuff works. Like there's tons of books out there, there's tons of online guides, and that's the best way to learn, at least for me, was to see how other people build things and really find out what's working for you. And that's how I started to be able to build my own stuff, is by seeing how other people build their stuff. But it's different for everybody. Some people are great at just experimenting and figuring out how to build stuff that way. But one of my favorite ways to do it too is just looking at open source projects and seeing, where could I help? And then kind of, even if you don't make a contribution, you can try to test stuff locally on your machine.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Good stuff. Anything else?
Yeah, I could talk to Ben for a while. But
I would like to know how was the interview process. I know a lot of us are kind of scared about the interviews. So.
Yeah, the interview process, I mean, you're either ready for it and you're ready for the job, or you're not. And if you don't like the interview process, then it's probably not a great place to work. I know I've had interviews where they're really intense. They come in and they absolutely drill you about, do you know this? Do you know this? And you shouldn't be treated like that as a junior level developer. But I mean, if you really want a job and you know all the answers, then it could be a good fit for you. I actually turned down an offer at a place that it just didn't seem like a good fit, even just based on the interview process. But I ended up getting a job at this place because it was really nice. Everybody was really nice and informative. They understood that you don't know everything, and they actually had questions where they kind of seemed like if you were going to fake your way through it. Everyone was super friendly, but it was just 2 phone interviews. One of them was because we had the polar vortex or whatever. It was supposed to be an in-person. And then an in-person interview pretty much just to go in and sign the papers and, do the final steps. But I think it was 2 really kind of long phone interviews and then just the in-person meeting. But it was mostly more general stuff. It wasn't, can you answer this question for me over the phone about how you would code this? It was more kind of themed answers, like how long should a method be? What would you do about, if you had a old controller that doesn't have tests, how would you refactor it? And for stuff like that, they're looking for, well, I would write the test and then I would try to refactor the controller that way. So a lot of it is just, it's not very super specific questions. It's more based on, what would you do in this situation?
Hey, Ben, I don't know if this holds, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off whoever was going to answer your answer.
Go ahead, Angel. Whoever had the
Go ahead.
Because it was kind of like to add to that question. I don't know if you found out or you found this true, but there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know either.
No, definitely not. And that's kind of what it was.
Very true on my end. I mean, if I didn't know something, I just said I don't know, and I always said I could try to explain to you what I think it is, or how I think I would do it. And a lot of times you're like, oh yeah, just tell us how you think. And now you're just kind of showing your thought process, even though you don't know specifically how the right answer, but at least you're showing how you think about things and how you would try to figure things out. And that worked for me actually quite well. Like if I didn't know something, I just, you know what, I don't know, I haven't done that before. This is what I could think it would be. And people are kind of receptive. I like the fact that you mentioned that you're not fooling anyone into thinking you're a senior dev. You're just not. So it's very noticeable, but it's okay. It's okay to be a junior dev.
Yeah, it's totally okay to know where you are. I mean, it's much worse to think, I belong to be up with the higher end guys. And, that's what I was kind of saying in my last answer is we actually had a question to say, do you know this? And it was obvious that there's no way I could know it. It was something about like the priority of where a certain line of Ruby would go in, like, I forget exactly what the question was, but the whole point of the question was to be, would you try to fake the answer to this? And I had no idea, and I had no problem saying I had no idea. And everyone goes, okay. Like they had like an upward inflection as if to say, okay, good job. Like you didn't try to BS us. Nice. But yeah, I mean, you got to know where you are. You got to know where your skills lie and where you need to improve even. And that can be a strength for a junior developer and not just kind of, trying to fake your way. That's what I had in there is don't try to fake it till you make it. That was really bad advice from a former junior developer.
Was it
a different boot camp though.
Oh, okay.
You didn't go there.
I didn't tell you that, did I, Ben?
Cool, good stuff. Any other questions for Ben?
Yeah, I had a question.
Cool.
So I guess I was just wondering, like, by the time you started applying for jobs, what did your portfolio look like? Like, how many projects did you have, and like how important of a role do you think that played in the entire process?
I had about 1/3 of a 1-month Rails application done. And then I had everything from Firehose. No, actually, I didn't even finish Flixster. I had Nomster. I had a group project. And then I had 3 different front-end freelance jobs. And I had one about half-built full-stack freelance job. So it was really, it adds up to about what all your projects should end up being at Firehose. because I didn't finish up building Flixer. I didn't finish up building that back end freelance job. So nothing more than most of the students here will build. And I didn't necessarily feel like I had a huge leg up from building those freelance jobs either. I mean, if you have a capstone project, it's the same thing. So, but everywhere I sent out my GitHub, I was kind of worried, thinking like, oh, I'm not really necessarily ready for this. And then everywhere I sent out my GitHub, I ended up getting a follow-up interview pretty quickly. So it's, you're really getting pretty well prepared to have a good portfolio here at FireHose.
That's good to hear, because I keep feeling like, I'm only in week 6, but I keep feeling like, man, I feel like I'm never going to feel ready, to apply.
I still don't feel ready. I mean, I would think like I'm not. I've been there for almost 5 months now, and I feel like I'm not ready to even start looking for a job if I wasn't there. So,
all right, I'm not the only one. Sweet, Ben.
Huh?
I'm not the only one who feels that way, Ben.
No, I mean, imposter syndrome is so huge, but that's the thing is you come to places like this so you don't have to worry about imposter syndrome. FireHose is a really great resource, and I had one of the product managers wasn't really sure about it because he hadn't heard about it, but then he went and checked it out, and he actually came back with really high praise for it. So, I mean, you're in the right place to mitigate, imposter syndrome, but it's so heavy. I have friends who have been doing this for 10 years and they're still terrified of stuff like that. Yeah. I think, I forget his name. He was on Code Newbie podcast, not the same episode as Angel, but he's a senior developer at Microsoft. And he said, I go into work every day thinking that someone's going to find out that I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's been a software engineer for something like 15 years. So it's not you, it's the whole industry. There's so much to know about programming that there's just no way you can know it all, especially this early on. It's going to take a while to get comfortable, but that shouldn't slow down, your application process for looking for jobs.
Gotcha.
If I could add something to that, especially right now that I've been hosting the Ruby Monday thing on the Code Newbie channel, there's so many people that do like tutorials and they're really strong coders. I mean, they know Ruby very well. And they just don't ever feel ready. I mean, I get that question so often on the Slack channel, which is, how do I know I'm ready? And no one ever feels ready. And I think that, at least in FireHose, that you're still going through it, you have a big advantage, because it's kind of like at the end of the 12 weeks, like you have Ken and the other mentors telling you, dude, you're ready. Like, go, you're ready. And that's something that a lot of people that have done like tutorials on their own, they are probably really ready. A lot of them, I always feel that a lot of them are stronger coders than I am. But they don't have that like kind of little stamp that someone's telling them, go, like you're done, go look for a job, hurry up. And I think FireHose does that for you. Like if you really go kind of pay attention to the program, you're done, you're ready as a junior dev. You really are. Keep learning, keep working on stuff, but you shouldn't really wait too much after that. I mean, with what you have here, that's a decent enough portfolio to kind of go ahead and get started as a junior dev.
Yeah, the one thing I might add to that, everything is spot on, but like the process, like get ready, like you are ready probably, but get ready to get like punched in the face like 100 times, right? So it's not like it's just gonna be like, cool, you send out one email and then you get a job and you walk in and it's good. Like there's a shit ton of work sort of involved in the whole process too. And a lot of times like you might see sort of like some talks like this where it's just like, oh, it sounds like Angel just sort of walked into the job and Ben just applied on Dice and he just like you're not hearing the whole backstory. No. And I think if you did hear the whole backstory, you would actually believe what these guys are saying, where it's like, I still don't know if I feel like I'm ready, because it's hard. So trust us when we tell you that you're ready, but at the same time, don't let the first time you get punched in the face just like cripple you and sort of cause you to be like, oh, I'm not ready, because that's just the worst thing ever.
Yeah, and a big part of it is finding a good fit, because you can take 3 months applying for a job and take the first one and like, oh, I have a job, but if you don't like it, but then you really got to find a place that works well. And that's part of getting punched in the face 100 times. You can go in an interview that doesn't feel right, but you still get a follow up, and that can be a punch in the face. And like someone said in the chat, Angel said it. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Great quote by my But I applied jobs for, I think, about 2 months before I found mine. And there were tons of them where just like, that was awful. That was the worst interview I've ever been on. And it's not all, daisies when you're out there applying for a job. So,
what was the dress code like?
At my house right here?
No, as far as like the interview process. So we've talked before. I'm from kind of the same background you are. So going into like sysadmin IT stuff, you're kind of expected to dress nice or more than business casual. Is that the same kind of thing as far as like web developers, or when you go in for an interview with a bunch of web developers, is it just, are you completely out of place if you show up in overdressed? Because I know I've got programming friends that do hiring, and they're like, we just don't like when people come in a suit and tie, and like, you know, it's not going to be a good fit if they're too uptight like that. So I'm just kind of curious what was the expectation there?
That's a good point about a culture fit kind of thing, because if you don't like wearing a suit and tie and you go into an interview wearing a suit and tie, you're kind of putting off the people who you would be a good culture fit with. But it's also a point about, you know, knowing your environment where you're applying for. If you're applying to Microsoft, if you're applying to, you know, a big, you know, Facebook, something like that, you need to dress up. And this is actually a good story. Is the place I work at now, I went on a Skype interview and I wore a suit and tie to a Skype interview, and they didn't even turn the camera on. So I was just sitting there in a suit and tie for about an hour and a half, just, and but yeah, I think for most of the people we have on a Skype interview, if they do turn the camera on, it's usually just like a button-up shirt and a tie, sometimes a tie. Most people don't wear a full suit and tie.
Yeah, I think that was kind of like for me personally, like I remember I used to always go to interviews in a suit and tie, and then I was like on the interview process, and the guy that ever walked through the door was just wearing a t-shirt. And then afterwards I was like, what the heck just happened? Like, why? And then like from that point on, I'm like, I'm not going to wear a suit and tie to an interview. That's just stupid. But yeah, it's like people do different things. Do what you feel comfortable with. Cool. Any other questions, comments for Ben?